right, for this next talk, I'm inviting somebody very special to come up and tie this all together. My journey really started at Kessel Run, as a lot of you know and have heard. And Kessel Run stood on the shoulders of a lot of giants. I feel like it gets left out of the story a lot. There was NGA GeoInt Services, who I think it's fair to say was standing on a lot of the work of 18F and TTS. And there's a longer progression that goes even farther back. But NGA GeoInt Services was critical to us getting off the ground at Kessel Run. It's something I'll talk about in my final talk to close out the day. But one of the people there that was super instrumental in us being able to launch Kessel Run, he didn't even work for our organization, was Paul Puckett. And after NGA, he joined Pivotal. Pivotal played an instrumental role as well in the launch, but also especially the scaling of Kessel Run. And Paul was instrumental. I mean, the person that I go to with almost every techno policy question that I have. We've become good friends over the years, but I probably reach out to him too much. I always have a million questions. But what I love most, any Ray Dalio Principles fans? Any? Come on, there's got to be more than that. One of the things is about disagreeing well and finding people that you disagree well with, which I'm not very good at, to be frank. And what I really love about Paul, this is a very non-traditional introduction, but what I really love is I've never found somebody that I disagree with so well. He also disagrees with me very often, but I won't hold that against him. But it helps us get to a better place. It helps us learn a lot of honesty, and that's what I want for this community. So I'm super excited to have Paul Puckett, Director of the Army Enterprise Cloud Management Agency, come up and wrap up and tie up everything that we've talked about.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Well, hello. Good afternoon. It's actually my first time using one of these things, so this is going to be fun. Let me take a few moments to kind of piece together what's going on in my brain. I need for you guys to understand the way that I tick, so you understand the words that I choose and kind of the tone that I use is intended to come from a good place, out of love. There's another talk that I'm giving here in a few weeks, and my goals out of the talk that I present are that I want to piss the people off, I want to make them think, and I want to encourage them. I don't think that my talk's going to piss you off. I don't really have that intention. But I do want to make you think, and I do want to encourage you. But you need to understand the way that I work. So let me use my little clicker here. I include this just so you understand a little bit about me. Now, this is very work business centric, and I tried to write it in a way how I would argue most resumes or CVs should be written. What is the actual outcome that you delivered? What was the actual value? What was the actual thing that you achieved for the mission? I tried, but I also want to understand a few pieces about me. I've been doing this for 15 years. Quite frankly, that doesn't mean anything. That's a different way of saying ever since I dropped out of college in 2006 in my first job. I've been supporting the Department of State or the Department of Defense or the intelligence community, whether that was as a contractor, a civilian, or working for industry. This has just been the business that I've in. I caught the bug. My grandfather was in the Navy. He was a pilot. And I'm just passionate about this world. There are a few experiences that I've had that kind of shapes why I care about this world of agile software delivery, agile acquisition, the value of platforms, the value of engaging with your actual users and understanding their pains, and much longer story. But that first one, letting the stand-up of the NGA OCONUS data center, the real story around that is we spent $8 million in about 2.5 years delivering a capability that I was fortunate enough to go and be the site lead about 6 months after it went live. And I walked across the base to command 5th Fleet and Indications and Warnings team, the team that actually looked and sees what happens within the region and says, hey, are we being indicated of something that I should create a warning for? And I said, how do you love these services that we built for you? And they said, they're a piece of crap. They don't work. So I learned this journey of a little bit of human-centered design, and I was fortunate to fall into a contract that was written with Agile story points. And in 2 weeks, we were able to solve that pain because we had never designed around the fact that they're using workstations and technology that hadn't been updated for about 6 years. And so we built a modern platform for a very unmodern user. But when we made the tweaks, kind of circumstance happened, the way that they got all their imagery completely died, and they were left to only use our services. That resulted in ultimately a 30 times decrease in the time it took for them to run exercises to say, hey, is there an issue? Is there something I need to address? How do I do targeting? And then fundamentally became the way that we did business. But I learned about human-centered design and agile software delivery there, and just how important it is to incorporate the pains and the challenges, and quite frankly, the outcomes that we have to achieve. There are other experiences that I had, but today I run what's called the Enterprise Cloud Management Agency. And really, it's an agency that I would argue was born out of spite. When I first got the job in 2019, I did a little bit of discovery as to why the ECMO at the time existed. The Enterprise Cloud Management Agency was given $750 million over the course of the FIDA, was a directorate within the CIO G6 at the time of the United States Army, and an element within headquarters Department of the Army. Not the place that anyone goes to get value. It's policy, it's governance, it's people that think from the big head shed, but everyone else are the actual doers. And I asked the question, why do I exist? All of the authorities and mission to deliver IT capabilities with the cloud already exists in the Army. Why am I here? What happened for the Army to get to a place where $750 million had to be carved? It's because, quite frankly, the way that we do business does not meet the way that we need to succeed and win in the way the world works today. We're broken. It takes too long. We try to predict the future. We think we can predict the future, but we can't. So we had to do things a little bit of a different way. So the ECMO, and now the ECMA, is really a Hail Mary pass. But I essentially brought the experiences that I had to the table and said, hey, I've got a hypothesis to how we can do this a better way. Let's see if this works. So about 3 years later, we've seen some outcomes. I won't dive into the details. But I would argue more importantly, we're starting to see people change the way that we do practice of how we understand customers, how we understand pain, how we want to deliver capability, and continuously do that over time as we mature along the way. So when we talk about a topic of DevOps, very, very, very meaningful to me, but quite frankly, it's really just all these different components and pieces. And I was talking to Bryon leading up to this, looking at the agenda, and I was like, I dig it. I'm down for Prodacity. But it feels like we're just kind of given all of the ingredients. Like, at what point in time do we actually start to bake this thing? Right? Like, we've got to put these pieces together. You could look at the last 2 days and be like, man, I'm being empowered with a lot of good information. You could also look at the last 2 days and be like, man, there's a lot of information. How do I put these things together? And the other argument I would say is we find ourselves at different points in time. I've been kind of playing pieces of this game for about the last 10 years. Things kind of shift. Your worldview changes as you start to expand when you get to a success. Because typically what happens, people are like, oh my gosh, like, you did it, great job, go do it again. Here's some more money, here's some more money, here's more money, here's more resources, here's more people, right? Like, go do it again, go scale it. We hear that word a lot. And especially in the size of the Army, everyone's afraid of scale. But I think we start to lose sight of it. So things can get really overwhelming sometimes. So my intent here is I want to kind of give you how these pieces come together. And that's why I called it higher math. When I went to college, and maybe we can put this in a box, I was a math major. Very first math class, very first semester, I failed. So if I'm trying to teach you about math, probably not the right person, but very passionate about it. But we will do a little PEDMAS on this. PEDMAS, everyone understands the order of operations? Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So we're going to do a little PEDMAS on this puppy so you understand the core components and the way that we need to work through this equation and put it together. First, it's the exponent within the parentheses. The team. You've talked about balanced teams, but I want to break this apart into a few other pieces because there's more components to your team. People obviously, one of the famous quotes, right? If I had more time, I'd use less words. I'm not very good at that. I'm pretty verbose. If I had more time, I'd probably use more words. So be thankful that I built these slides between yesterday and today. But I want to break this apart from you. We all know this. I'm not telling you anything new. And quite frankly, I would argue probably a lot of things that you heard the last 2 days you probably heard before. My hope is we kind of give a little bit of a different take, a little bit of a different edge, maybe something to focus on even too. Team's the foundation. A lot of people think there's some really smart, really talented people out there. It's very true. No one succeeds alone. If you get that person on your team that thinks that they can succeed alone, please question why they're part of your team. Balanced teams are something that you need across, quite frankly, at the very least, a mindset, not necessarily individual personnel representation, but balanced teams are something you need to wrap around with your team. And I break into this a few different ways here. Who understands the value that we're trying to achieve for the business? Who understands the value that we're trying to achieve for the user and the customer? And who are the people that are actually putting the components together to get to that value? It's my Ronnie quote from Jersey Shore. I truly believe that product management and design is an inherently governmental role. It's not to say that product management and design is not a representation also in contractors on your team, but when I think about the voice of the user and the voice of the business, the strategic business objective to be achieved for the mission, at some point the government's going to be making decisions and saying yes to something and no to something else. And having the government further and further removed from the voice of the customer and the voice of the business, I think creates toil where there does not need to be toil. We also often talk about the balanced team. Chat with my buddy Metzger. She's like, well, where are the money and the resource people, man? Like, where are the people that actually understand this practice? Don't forget about those people. You'll see this in the Agile Manifesto. Self-forming teams deliver some of the best architectures and solutions and capabilities. You have to build the coalition of the willing. Very first thing that I did when I got the Army job is I created a Slack channel. It was illegal, can't do it, just not accredited by the DoD, sorry. We called it the Army Cloud Catalyst. And I was like, I don't care if you work for the Army and around the Army, you know the Army, you used to know the Army. Who are the people that we should probably know in our Rolodex that care about what it is that we're trying to do? Leveraging cloud computing to understand the mission, deliver better capability continuously into the future to compete and win. You need to build that coalition of the willing. Take the time to talk to the people. This is another thing I think that we do quite poorly. Two different ways to look at this. One, we think we need to know all the characters in the story, and we need to build all of their storylines for those character development things. We need to bring them all in the room, everything day one, in order to start something. That's not true. But you're going to find yourself toiling if you don't know the characters that you probably need to include in your story, and you wait until chapter 5 in the story to tell them, hey, here's what happened in chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. So oftentimes we think we know who these characters are, but we don't even involve them into the conversation. They don't understand the arc, they don't understand the plot, they don't understand the outcome that we're trying to achieve. Now you find yourself stopping and having to start all over again with the story. So one of the things I would suggest is know the characters in your story, and have the characters know that they are a character in your story, but maybe you're just not here yet. I'm currently on chapter 1, you're in chapter 5, so I'll get to you when I get to when I need you, but you should expect this conversation when I get there. It keeps you small at the start, but it helps you where you're actually accruing people that understood what was going on. Quick story on this one. I've got a story for each one of these bullet points. Bear with me. I'm not going to share them all. Major initiative in the Army for around mission command. Very broken way of delivering mission capabilities for the sensor and the shooter, if you will, within the Army. But one of the best things that we did is an initiative that was born out of 18th Airborne Corps. I contacted the PE and I said, hey, here's the deal. You're not structured to support this team today, but you need to be. So I don't need you right now, but I need you to be on the sides and be able to support and be aware, because at some point this is going to become the way that you do business. And we're now about 1.5 years into 2 years from that, and it's now starting to become the way that they do business. And I'm not repeating myself in the objective. We're now working through the objective and the outcome. So include them into the conversation, even if you don't need them just yet. This includes your customer. Let's be understanding and mindful that your coalition, sometimes even your team, is your customer. You have to have those feedback loops. But we'll get to platforms here in a moment when you talk about delivering for them. And this is the other thing I don't think we do well, and actually Bryon pokes me about this a lot, so sorry, buddy. We don't use our network. Please use your network. There are more people in the Rolodex, quite frankly, that can influence the way that you do business, even if they have nothing to do with your agency. One of my unsaid jobs at NGA was typically the bullshit meter. I would get pulled into meetings I had nothing to do with, but typically talking about technology. Someone's like, I don't understand what they're saying, but I'm fairly certain there's bullshit, I just can't sift it out. So I just came in there to influence the conversation. I wasn't the decision maker, but I was given an opportunity to have a seat at the table because we pulled in people of influence can help change the trajectory of what you're trying to do. Know those people, know your network, and please use them. And finally this, what if the dog catches the car that it's been chasing after and like you just won? Let's do this again. You don't need to solve for this. We had a great discussion on talent. Have an idea as to where you're going to get your talent and how you're going to cultivate that and how you're going to grow that. Because the people that get it and want to do it are few and far between. There can be more, but we need to build the bridges for the people and how we grow those people over time. That's the team. Let's talk about the exponential value of leadership within that team. this makes us more valuable. Anyone can be a leader. Ready to talk about that? But anyone can be a leader with influence. Someone with authority has to say yes. So we're not talking like, hey, don't ask for permission, just start and go do. That's true. But if you're not the one that actually has the authority to say yes and somebody else does, right, you need to understand that there's somebody else that has to say yes in order to move things forward. So at some point, you're going to have to know who that is. So find them. And find the people around the edges that actually want to say yes for something as well. Sometimes they can help influence their peers who also have the authority to say yes. And another thing I don't think we do well is the second part of this. Typically, we know who the naysayers are, the frozen middle is. You want to know who those people are. You want to know, quite frankly, why it seems that they like to say no. Most people aren't jerks that just dramatically don't like people and just love saying no. There's some incentive, there's something in their background, there's something that created the circumstance by which they say no all the time. Please understand what that is. And when you find the people who want to say yes and the people who are ultimately owning the risk when you get after something, find a way to partner with the people who have to own the risk. This is something I didn't do well when I was at NGA. I essentially rage quit at NGA. I presented some scenarios to my leadership, and I said, hey, I need you to make a decision on this thing. And if you don't make a decision in 6 months, I'm quitting. 6 months later, no decision, and I quit. I didn't have a lot of empathy for the pain points that he was going through and the tough space and decisions that he had to make. And when I took this job, I was like, oh, now I get to feel that pain. Now I feel that pain. So I wish I had asked the questions to understand the pain. That's a question I ask now. Please, when you engage with leadership, ask them, right, and build some empathy for that pain that they go through, because they have a boss too, probably get spicy about certain things, and oftentimes we miss that point. But if you can help solve their pain, you are now their partner, but at the same time, please stay appropriately impatient, right? Sometimes people hit me up and like, I just kind of feel like this is taking too long. I'm like, oh, how long has it taken? Like 3 months? Whoa! You probably should have hit me up at about a week and a half later. Like we've wasted a little bit of time. So there's a certain amount of impatience that please you need to have. Let's talk about the other components here, because we're still within these wonderful parentheses. Great conversation on Agile acquisition. It was a little bit short for my liking, but we can dive into some of the details. When you need to grow and build capacity, Agile acquisition is your make or break. This is a quote I pray everyone just repeats at every single moment in time you possibly have. They are not requirements, they're just untested hypotheses. We'll talk about the ability to go and test that hypothesis as quickly as possible so I can get a little bit better on my guesses here. But this gets into, when we talk about Agile acquisitions, is writing for objectives, not specific solutions to be derived. Even if you have an idea, even if someone sold you on this vision of this thing, just take a step back from a product or a technology or a thing and just kind of write an objective around the edge. Because tech just exists to deliver an outcome for a mission. Write an objective for that mission, please. This is another one. The world of Agile acquisitions, I wouldn't say is new, but people that actually understand this practice, both from the KOs and the CORs, know and communicate clearly with them. Something I'm actually still learning today is to bring them into the strategy, because they need to understand that strategy. And the other second point, I find myself teaching a lot of this, is people focus on the Agile acquisition side of the house, but the actual practice of using the contract in Agile software delivery, many contracting officers do not understand. What are the implications? What are the deliverables, right? Like, it just kind of feels like you're willy-nilly doing stuff. Where's the deliverable for that, right? You actually need to bring them into the conversation, and there are a number of people within the network who understand both Agile acquisition and the practice of using the contract that you acquired so agilely. Understand the incentives. Mutual incentives are great. The best thing I ever learned when I quit the government is I learned, quite frankly, how industry worked. And I understood incentives in a wonderful and beautiful way that if I didn't have that experience, there's no way possibly I could even try to do this job right now, or even write contracts that actually creates mutual incentives for the government and industry to work together as partners. And this pivots you from the product mindset into a partner mindset, because this very much is a journey, so you need to understand that. And I'll say time and material is your friend. You can do firm fixed price if it's a capacity skill set that you are firm fixing the price around. but please don't have it be a deliverable. And this is the other thing. If you're in the actual product management business, please understand that your auditable backlog of delivered features and capabilities, it probably should be a deliverable. It's a thing that helps the government, and this is the empathy moment, and the contracting officers understand. It's like, what is the thing that you actually got? You can actually see where the government made these decisions to say yes and to say no to something that actually became the components of the value that we've derived for the mission. Just use that auditable backlog as something in your deliverable. Fourth component, your path to production. Platforms need to include the entire path to production. Now, I'll break this apart. There are some teams where they see immense value in starting this journey to simply use a component of the path to production. There's a lot of value in the Army today just to have the tools of modern software development. They don't even know how to get to production. So there's, as we understand, and as this equation will tell you, there's a lot of other components that have to come into play to truly start to do that. But understand, platforms need to include the entire path to production. The other thing is, please work from the operational environment back. A lot of people love some products and build a CI/CD pipeline, and they start and focus on the software developer, and this is really great, this feels awesome, how do I serve your needs? But they don't understand the actual operational environment in which they're fielding and the constraints of that environment. Had we done this in that NGA story, it probably would have designed some things differently and would have saved ourselves some time. Understand that operational environment and work your way backward when you create the path to production. Bryon and I disagree well. This is the point where we start to disagree. Sorry, not to undercut the whole chat. Maturing this over time probably becomes a dedicated team. You might squint your eyes and think, oh, that looks like an enterprise cloud team. But at some point, we have to start to have people own the repeatable deliverable of the thing so that we don't find ourselves constantly starting from zero when people ask us to do it again. Now, I'll argue, starting from zero when someone asks you to do it again the second time probably makes sense. You haven't probably found all of the bounds of repeatability in doing something once. And you probably haven't done it 3 times. But as you start to see 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, you should probably hold some opinions as to what is reusable, and you shouldn't be rebuilding. And when you're building something the first time, just be mindful at some point your work might need to be tweaked to become the reusable thing. If you always design for reusability from day one, you may find yourself designing reusability and not a mission outcome. The two are different. Your architecture, you heard this yesterday, will make or break your team. I would argue really my job is more so a cloud architect than anything else. And when I say cloud, I mean all the components of cloud computing to include all of the people and processes around it. So think about your architecture, and when I'll say architecture, I'll go deep on the word architecture, but your architecture is going to be your make or break of your team. So have someone that thinks about that and understands that there's no such thing as greenfield delivery in the world of the platform business. There's no such thing. Anything you field in the DoD today at some point in time is going to have to talk to something, with an interface, with a human, with a something. It is always going to be the case. You cannot avoid it. And I would argue, if you're only delivering value that only lives as its own cocoon, great thing one time, no one's going to lean on you to solve their problem. Because the rest of the DoD that feels pain and problem is something where they are a component of a greater ecosystem. So understand there's no such thing as greenfield, and you will very quickly have to care. I can tell you how much you care and where you care and what that kind of form it takes, but you're going to have to care. And when I say play, it doesn't necessarily mean to be an automated interface or a number of different things, but you're going to have to play. And then finally, something I don't think a lot of people do well, there's a lot of exceptions to policies that exist. There was a comment made about that with Agile acquisition. There's a lot of exceptions to policies all over the place. You need to understand the policy that you're breaking and why you're breaking it and why it's important that you break it. But if you don't understand the policy that you're breaking, and the people that love to say no come to the table and you didn't do your homework as to why they like to say no, and you don't have an answer, even if it's the right thing, everyone's going to struggle with it. So please just know. I'm not saying don't break them. There's a lot of ones you can break them. Just know which ones you're doing. Let's talk about the mission. So the mission, quite frankly, is the multiplier of each one of these components. Acquisition, path to production, those are resources. People, as well as the leadership, kind of driving after this, super important. How do we make this something that we multiply? All of those things exist for the M. I'll repeat it. None of those things are valuable in and of themselves. All of them exist for the mission that you have. And if you don't understand this, this is going to be an issue. Everyone involved needs to understand the why. Why? Because when things suck, and they will suck, I guarantee you they will suck, they will be awful, they will be painful, there will be moments in time where you want to quit, dramatically, sometimes even with a lot of spice. The only thing that's going to carry you through, should I have one other hanging chad, which we'll get to here soon, is the mission. There's a greater purpose than you and that pain and that moment in time that's going to carry you through. This is the thing that will recharge you, it will unify you, and it will focus you on the priorities to get to the outcome. So, I've seen a lot of teams stand up in this thing that's like, hey, we need to work on the Agile acquisition, the platform team, and like product teams, all this stuff. Just choose any mission. No, disagree. You need to make good bets. Here's personal opinion, pain point, joy, a little bit pain. There's a lot of Kessel runners in the room, so I love you. I say this with hugs. Kessel Run got wicked lucky with the Tinker Planner tool. It happened to have an outcome that was just mind-blowing for many people. And they started to scale, and they're like, what's the next one? What's the next one? What's the next one? Let me tell you, there are, I wouldn't say a lot of duds, but there were some bets that were made that, quite frankly, should not have been bets that were made. And the conversation that they struggled with was like, you know, they had really cool stories on that Tinker Planner one. Where are my stories on this other one? You just got to make some bets. You got to be thoughtful. Listen, you can't predict the future, but you're going to be making some bets, because at the end of the day, there's resources being spent. There's money going out there. Someone is anteing in to play the game. Make sure that you're making good bets. Please be a storyteller of the opportunity for the mission. If you don't understand the outcome to be achieved and how that makes people's lives better, you're going to struggle. You're really going to struggle. And this is really the technologists in the room. You're like, start talking about some great technology along the way. Man, you're going to lose some people. It's my challenge. I do that poorly. I'm like, oh, this technology is super fun, but I'm missing the point of the outcome to be achieved. One of the best stories of mission command as a service, and just kind of a pain point. It ultimately became pain point and then ultimately a goal. This Captain Shoemaker who hit me up, he was like, hey man, I'm tired of lugging 3,500 pounds of equipment into the field. It's backbreaking, it's not fun. I think we can deliver mission command with 30 minutes or less. The moment I have network connectivity, I can have operational readiness and maneuver that fundamentally changes the way that I use my people. I tell you, you go into Forces Command, and you say, hey, here's the deal. How would you like to have operational readiness and maneuver within 30 minutes? I've done the math. It takes you about 2 months to get that today. Is that something of value to you? I tell you, there's a lot of commanders that are going to lean into that story. I said this earlier. Please don't be too focused on scaling, because your mission's going to suffer along the way. At some point, the quality and value for the mission, how you continuously enhance the mission, because you might add value, but you need to probably do it again and again and again over time. If you think about scale too much, if it scares you and you want to focus on it, please don't do that, because the mission's going to suffer. So enhance the mission one time, and do it again. Find a way to repeat it without sacrificing quality. All right. The exponential one for all of it, where do you think this is going? The speed. Man, the speed of light. Culture. I'm just going to be honest with you. I kind of don't like this conversation. Sounds weird? I don't like this conversation. I feel too many people use this culture word. It's kind of a crutch. Like something is painful and you can't put your finger on it. It's the culture. It's the culture. I think this is really just humans. I think this is humans. I'll break it apart. There's something that makes us tick. Culture is the ultimate force multiplier. I would argue if you've got a crappy culture, it's still the ultimate force multiplier. It's just going to take you in the wrong way. Listen, you can have every single one of those variables, the most mature thing you've ever seen in your life. If you've got a bad culture, you will not survive. I think we all know this, but I think it's getting to the human element. You've got to understand what makes people tick. You've got to create incentives for people along the way of how we are going to function and make it something that you're incentivizing the right behavior. And to that point, there's a purpose and a reason that the culture we have today exists, the culture. There's a reason why humans function the way that they do in the DoD today. And if you're not taking the time to understand what created that culture, like what might have been the catalyst to that, you're going to struggle. I love my deputy dearly. Come to find out, there's some challenges working with Greg from day one. Reality was, Greg had been beaten, not physically, but mentally down by leadership and decisions and how he was trying to tackle the challenges of the Army. So, heart breaks for him. But you can imagine when failure happens, defense. You become defensive. You lash out. I'm like, bro, why are you swiping at me? Come to find, it's because he'd always been kicked. I showed him love. Understand what makes people tick. Because that guy was the guy that just called me up about a month ago and said, man, I'm finally going to sign the cultural principles of the ECMA. I get it. I want to do things differently. So you got to know the game if you want to change the game. You got to draw a line for what is and what is not acceptable within your team. I give you a talk on this. There's a link at the bottom. You're not going to capture all of the letters, but if you go and search in it, you can see it. And I almost cry in that one too. It's not too terribly fun. But it's who I am. Immense value in people. Here's the other thing. It's kind of a little bit spicy. Anyone can work with me. Anyone can work with me. I don't care what organization you're in. I'll asterisk that in a bit. I think that there's immense value in restructuring an organization around incentives and how people work together. Listen, you can work for whoever you want, but I've got to have a say in your performance appraisal. If your performance appraisal says do not take risk in any way, shape, or form, at some point in time you may be forced to feel like a human and appeal to that when you really need to take risk. So I read all the performance appraisals of my people and like, hey, you're going to take calculated risk. Not needless risk, not spicy risk, not clueless risk, calculated risk. Be thoughtful about it. What are the trades? Take a risk. And did you learn from it? I don't care if you came to an outcome, because if you're learning from it, we're probably getting to a better place. If we understand the objectives and you're learning from it, we'll get to that outcome. So why would I write a performance appraisal on the outcome? No. Take some calculated risk, learn along the way. And this is another thing, lights me up. I kind of get really angry on this one. You are not the cool kids, and you are not right. You've not achieved some wonderful place of enlightenment. Like the fact that you're here and other people are not, it's like, we're so great. False. It's not true, right? It's not true, right? It's just not true. Not the cool kids, you're not right. It's just a better way. Because the thing that you're fighting with, there's a beautiful part of the culture of the DoD that takes the hill. One of the colonels that worked for me, he was like, Paul, you keep saying this culture thing, and it pisses me off. Whoa. He's like, well, this culture creates leaders. This culture creates an army that has fought and won wars around the world, that sacrifices people's lives for this mission. And you keep telling me that this culture is broken. I'm like, whoa, I need to be a doctor here. There needs to be an X-Acto knife where I cut it precisely the thing that it is when we say that we want to change the culture. So stop using that word to essentially encapsulate everything that feels painful. Start to find the words of the things that you want to change and the practice you want to change within the humans that you work and how you create incentives within the people, which means that we have a duty here to preserve the culture that wants to take the hill. This is a charge against you. Please do not crutch the word culture. There's a link if you want the link. So this is the math. This is the proof. It's actually a callback to Mr. Bryon Kroger. Bryon, when he learned about this wonderful world of platforms and delivering capability continuous, he wrote this thing that he called policy math. Where's BK? Yeah, man. He wrote this thing called policy math. There are a number of presentations that we gave together when I was over at Pivotal about this. And policy math, if I do recall, said, I think it was just ATO at the time. It wasn't even CATO at the time. It was just ATO equals infrastructure as a service plus platform as a service plus User-centered design, well, actually, I don't think UC was kind of lightweight, but test-driven development, user-centered design, and continuous integration and continuous delivery pipelines. You add those components together, it was kind of like an early iteration of this continuous ATO construct where the security controls to be inherited start to accrue across that. Now get to a point where I can just move quickly and deliver capability. So this is kind of my tweak of policy math around this world of DevOps. But internally to the Army right now, it's kind of a fun opportunity. We're in the midst of creating a presentation that will go to the Undersecretary of the Army, and every single senior leader in the United States Army will be in this presentation, every single one. It's a unique situation. And we're essentially presenting on how do we encapsulate the practices of DevSecOps, and what are the things that the Army needs to do in both policy as well as practice for this to become the norm within the Army. And let me tell you, about the 200 people that sit on a call about 3 times a week, all chewing on DevSecOps and what that means to them is just horrendously painful. I say this with love, just horrendously painful. And essentially, part of the small team, I said, guys, our goal is to never even use that word. We can't, we just demystify it. If we keep using that word, there's a lot of shots that everyone should be taking. Like, just bring some bottles of whiskey. Let's talk about the components of it. Let's talk about the attributes of it. Let's talk about the things that are a little bit more tangible that we can put our fingers on that helps people understand how these things get added together. And that was actually the brain catalyst for trying to be thoughtful. Like, can I actually come up with a stupid, equation for this? And this is the thing. I was almost so inclined to create an acronym word out of it, but map doesn't really work. But here's where I think that we're flawed. Very first line in the DevSecOps thing, the very first slide, is the definition. Because I feel a lot of people don't even understand the definition. Can we align on the definition? Right? It's the convergence of developers, cybersecurity professionals, IT operation professionals, and their tools, processes, their incentives, their cultures, in order to continuously deliver capability of value for the mission. A lot of people forget that second part. We're like, oh, and a lot of people have focused on like, oh, we're shifting security left and CI/CD. No, you're talking about components of it, but what's the thing that we're actually trying to achieve with this whole entire wonderful practice? It's the in order to part. We often forget it. Any of these things, all of these things exist for some kind of thing. It's not DevOps. We're not solving for DevOps. DevOps is not the goal. DevOps is a means. The goal is value. You can add continuous, you can add a number of different things, mission objectives, outcomes. All of these things is to get to value. Value for the mission. Outcomes and achievements that actually moves the ball in the way that we do business. That's really what we're solving for. So when you go and engage with people, I would ask, don't forget the in order to of the definition, and help them understand and focus on the components. So let me unpack this in a way, because I said my goal was to make you think and to make you feel encouraged. Made a side conversation. Next time we have like a meeting like this, it almost feels like it should be like youth group conferences when you're a kid, where like all the pastors were like, bring a friend who's never been to church. It's true, right? We all live that. We all live that. Always a very interesting moment. I want to feel more of those moments in scenarios like this. I said in another talk, like, this isn't a self-help group. Like, people aren't showing up at the front door and it's like, I think I'm broken. Like, it's not a thing. It's not a thing, right? We need to help people understand the components and bring them into the story and help them understand what it is that we're really trying to do. Back to the thing of being the cool kids. Listen, you're not right. You just have an idea of a better way, and you want to see if we can prove it. That's all it is. That's all it is. So, for that, I'll say thank you. I'll engage with a number of different people. I'm horrible at email. Don't email me ever. If you shoot me a message or a connection on LinkedIn, I can give you guys my phone number. I'm pretty good at text. But I'm very passionate, I think if you can tell, about this topic, and this is something that I feel that we need to get a little bit deeper than the facade. There are a number of books that you can read about this, but the heart and soul of the challenge that we have in front of us is the practice of the theory. We have to get to the practice of this, and we have to build the experiences of people in the practice so they feel the joys and the pain and see the outcome so they can pursue with us. Because I would argue, no one succeeds alone. And I would also say no one fails alone, right? Paul actually said in the last talk, I love when people share their pains. Success shared is success doubled. Pain shared is pain halved, right? We can eat that together. You're not alone in this, but we need to grow the community even more beyond us. So I'd ask, as you engage, talk about the components, talk about the pieces, talk about how we can learn along the way for each one of those pieces. But please, let's get after putting this together and start solving this problem. So with that, I know I've got a crazy amount more time, but I just want to say thank you, and thank you for the opportunity, Bryon. So thanks, everyone.